Hello, everybody. Mercedes are a bit good, aren't they? They're a bit quick. Oh my days. So, after all of this hype about four teams potentially all being very close together, it was actually, as a lot of other people were predicting, that Mercedes would have a massive advantage, and that is how it's transpired. Mercedes taking pole by a whopping margin and Russell by a couple of tenths over Antonelli, but they've got at least 8 tenths on the rest of the field. It could be a very 2014-esque season. It could be it could be back to those days. And for those of you who don't remember those days, they were not very interesting. They really, really were not. Um, but yeah, Mercedes have a massive, massive advantage over the rest of the field. Isaac Hadjar doing a brilliant job to put it in P3. The fact that he was able to out-qualify both Ferraris, both McLarens, is a very, very positive sign as to how quickly he's got to grips with that car. Even if he's not on Verstappen's pace, obviously we don't know where Verstappen is yet, because obviously he went off in Q1 and he ended up out of the session, so we don't really know where Verstappen's true pace is yet. But the fact that Hadjar is able to outqualify both Ferraris, both McLarens, get it into Q3, get it into a decent place, is a very, very positive sign. I was really hoping that Hadjar was going to be the one to break that second seat curse. I did have a lot of belief in him, although I played safe and I put in P8 in my Drivers' Championship predictions. I did have a feeling that he was going to be the one, especially with this new regulation change, especially with a new team principal and Laura Meckies. This was going to be the best time to come in as a second Red Bull driver, and it's a fantastic start for Isaac Hadjar. It really is. But obviously, story of the day is just how mind-blowingly quick Mercedes are and how far ahead they are of everybody else. There's a lot of people on Sky that was saying in the build-up that the top four teams were really, really close. You didn't know who was going to be where. The advantage could change from track to track, and I really do not think that is going to be the case. I think it's Mercedes are going to win unless they have a monumental screw up. I think that's the kind of season we're looking at. It could be, like I said, 2014-esque, could be 2023-esque, when Red Bull just cleaned up and then they had that one anomaly in Singapore where they just weren't on the pace. But yeah, if you're Red Bull, if you're Ferrari, if you're McLaren, unless Verstappen's got something we don't know about. But I think particularly if you're Ferrari and McLaren, you are very worried right now because they are way off, way more off than they thought they'd be. Because I got the feeling that although Ferrari and McLaren were playing themselves down, I think they were both hoping that they would be somewhat close to that mark. And I think it's kind of shocked them just how far off they are. So yeah, it's looking very, very ominous. Obviously, if you're a Mercedes fan, if you're a George Russell fan or a Kimi Antonelli fan, you're loving life. It's going to be a very, very exciting season. Um, but yeah, for Ferrari and McLaren, it's looking a little bit worrying. I mean, obviously it's not a disaster being fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh, but for McLaren, for a McLaren team that have won the Constructors' Championship for the past 2 years, the Drivers' Championship last year, it is a massive step backwards. Of course, my cat wants to jump up on here now every single time, dude. Every single time. Right, come on. No, no. I could literally I've left him alone for hours. He hasn't got up for hours. The minute I start this, he's gone back to sleep now, or gone back to bed now. The minute I start, he's straight up looking around the computer, wanted to get involved. He's a destructive fiend. But yeah, anyway, back to Formula One business. Other sort of outstanding results, I guess, massive props to Arvid Lindblad on his Formula One debut, the only rookie in the field managing to get it into Q3 and looking, pretty. I mean, I know the Racing Bulls are quite a way off in terms of pace compared to the front teams, but I think that fight between them and Audi, who look pretty promising, I've got to say, that power unit looks decent. Bortoleto getting into Q3, Hulkenberg just missing out. Audi look pretty good. I think them and Racing Bulls are definitely fighting it out for best of the rest at the moment. We'll get onto Audi properly in a minute. But Arvid Lindblad, on his Grand Prix debut, first Formula One weekend, did a fantastic job. Yes, out qualified by Lawson, but you expect that. You expect that. Lawson did a great job himself to end up in P8 at what is basically the closest thing he's got to a home race. But yeah, Lindblad, fantastic job on his debut to put it in P9. Looked very quick. In Q1, I think he was up there for quite a while. I think he was in sort of like second, third place for quite a while. And then obviously the big boys came out and came down the order. But no, very, very impressed with Arvid Lindblad. He's taken to Formula One very, very quickly. And yeah, very positive sign. I've said it before, I've been very impressed by the way that he speaks. He seems very, very mature for his age. He's got a good head on his shoulder. Oh my God, I can't even talk. A good head on his shoulders. Looks very calm and composed. And yeah, nothing really seems to faze him that much. And he's done a brilliant job. Yeah, like Audi, like I was going to mention, I honestly thought they'd struggle this year. I thought it would take at least a year for them to get it right. I thought they'd encounter a lot of issues initially, obviously having a brand new power unit, as a brand new team coming, although, they've been Sauber, but you've obviously got new personnel coming in, new ideas, and a new structure. So I thought it was going to take them a season to kind of settle in, but straight away, Bortoleto into Q3, and his pace, his pace in Q1 was monstrous. Like, he was up in P2 for a long time, behind Russell. He set one of the first laps on the soft tyre, but he was genuinely quick, and it was a real shame that he had that issue before Q3, which meant that he couldn't get out and run, because it would have been, I imagine he probably would have been at most P8. But his pace looked decent. Audi's pace in general looks pretty good. I would have them borderline 5th, 6th best team right now. I think it's probably between them and Racing Bulls for that P5, I think, at the moment. Obviously, you've got the top 4 that are kind of locked in. But yeah, Audi and Racing Bulls, very, very pleasantly surprised by what I saw from them. But on the flip side, Alpine, I was expecting a lot from them, and they didn't deliver. One of Crofty's classic moments where he didn't realise that Colapinto was on a qualifying lap, and he was like, "Oh, Alonso's into Q2," and completely forgetting that Colapinto's time was running across the bottom of the screen, and he ended up knocking Alonso out and getting into Q2 himself. But yeah, disappointing from Alpine, 14th and 16th. I think especially Gasly, I would have expected a bit more from him, but considering that Alpine have put all their eggs in this basket, they sacrificed 2025 because they thought, right, this is the year that we're really going to make it work, and we're really going to make big strides. And it just felt like a very, very underwhelming session from them. Maybe they'll pick it up and improve as the season goes on, as they get new upgrades and as they develop new parts and things like that. But yeah, I was quite disappointed by Alpine, to be perfectly honest. But we're only one race in. It could improve as the season goes on. And yeah, whilst I sort of touched on Alonso, but Aston Martin, obviously Stroll didn't do any running, which is not surprising given the issues that his car has had. But Alonso, as we'd expect, absolutely wrangled everything out of that Aston Martin and very, very nearly got it into Q2, which would have been absolutely phenomenal considering all the issues they've had. But unfortunately, just got pipped at the last and ended up getting knocked out in Q1 alongside Perez and Bottas, who put in a pretty respectable performance. It's obvious that Cadillac are well off the pace. It's obvious they're going to take a while to acclimatise to Formula One. But I thought it was a pretty respectable session. They weren't dreadfully far behind everybody else. I think they did about as well as you'd expect them to do. But yeah, they were the last 2 of the drivers that actually managed to get a lap in. But yeah, as we come to one of the other big stories of the day, which is Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen going out in Q1 after losing, or the rear axles locking as he went into the first corner. The rear axles locked, completely completely spun round on him, and he ended up in the barrier and out of the session. And Max Verstappen has got it all to do from 20th place on the grid. So a very, very disappointing start to Max Verstappen's season. It wasn't a driver error. It was completely just, yeah, a problem with the rear axles. Nothing to do with Verstappen at all. It's just one of those unfortunate things. But yeah, it means that we're going to see potentially a Verstappen charge through the field tomorrow and see where he ends up. But obviously, we know the advantage that Mercedes have got. So I can't see him getting anywhere near those two. But I don't know whether, because obviously Albert Park is quite a difficult circuit to overtake on. But I think if he could probably get himself maybe in the top 5, possibly even higher. I mean, a podium would be a dream, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, Verstappen having quite a few issues this weekend. He had a problem in practice, didn't he, where his car stopped running for a bit. So yeah, he's not had the easiest of weekends. He's come out today and said again that he doesn't like these cars at all, as has Lando Norris. Which is I brought up a lot of debate because obviously Lando Norris came out a few weeks ago and said, you know, we get paid quite a lot of money. We should just effectively shut up and drive, really. And then he's come out himself and criticised the cars as well. But yeah, Verstappen has it all to do tomorrow, and yeah, it'd be interesting to see when we get to China, what his qualifying pace would be relative to the Mercedes, because obviously he's sort of looked at as the saviour, really. If one team's dominant, it's kind of up to Max to kind of bridge that gap and make something happen. But yeah, obviously the fact that Hadjar is third is an indicator that Red Bull are in a decent place, and certainly better than the Ferraris and the McLarens. So yeah, there's definitely positive signs for Red Bull despite the Verstappen, despite what happened to Verstappen. But yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. And then Sainz as well, disappointing start for Williams, 15th and 21st. Sainz not doing any running at all, didn't get out of the garage at all during that session. And Lance Stroll, another one that we touched on, not getting out. So very, very disappointing starts from Williams and Aston Martin from an operational point of view. Anyway, these are the two teams that have had issues pre-season. I know Williams did all right in testing. Obviously, they had issues where they couldn't make it to the shakedown and they had to go away and do some extra work on their cars before the test in Bahrain. And obviously, we all know about Aston Martin and the major issues that they have had. And I'm very doubtful that Lance Stroll will even take the start tomorrow. I don't know if he actually can, to be honest, but we'll have to wait and see. And yeah, whether Alonso's even going to complete a race distance. But I better go and feed my cat or do something to him because he's looking at me. No, 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 no. Oh, sorry. So he's about to jump up and unleash all havoc on this setup. And he would have absolutely destroyed the lot. But yeah, Williams, yeah, another team that had a disappointing opening weekend, considering that they, again, like Alpine, really were a team that were putting a lot of their eggs into the 2026 basket. Even though they had a decent 2025, it was clear from James Vowles that this was their focus, and the fact that they haven't really taken advantage of it and haven't made the most of it so far, haven't made the strides that they wanted to make, is obviously massively disappointing to them. A team that I haven't, well, we've talked three teams really, that I haven't really talked about: Ferrari, McLaren, Haas. Ferrari, I think, would obviously be massively disappointed because a lot was expected of them. They looked very good in testing. I know you can't take anything from testing, but they looked quick, and they looked relatively quick in practice as well. And I think it's that same old Ferrari story where you've built up all that hype. You think, oh, it's finally going to be Ferrari's year. They're finally going to challenge, and then they get to the important bit, and they just fall flat. And yeah, Ferrari nearly a second off the pace Leclerc in fourth and Hamilton in seventh. It's kind of a similar story to last year, really. No real deal. Oh, so I'm just distracted because cat is just doing my head in. um, yeah, no real difference really to last year. It's kind of the same old tale. All that hype, and then they come into the first race and they're just not there. And although they're not a million miles away, I think they're kind of bailed out by the fact that obviously the top four teams do have a massive advantage over everybody else. But yeah, oh, Jesus, I can't talk today at all. It's because I've woken up at 4 a.m. and I couldn't get back to sleep, and my brain is just fried. And yeah, I think it's just completely thrown me out. But yeah, nowhere near the pace of Mercedes. Hadjar ahead of them as well, and McLaren as well have taken a massive step backwards this year, which is kind of to be expected, really, because I think a lot of teams find that when they've dominated the previous regulation cycle and they put all their eggs into that basket. I've used that phrase a lot today. Put all their eggs into that basket. There's always a little bit of a drop off when they come into a new regulation set and another team kind of takes advantage because they've been able to do more prep work for it. It's like Mercedes in 2022, dominated the previous era for so long, but were a little bit on the back foot coming into 2022 and couldn't really reset themselves. Yeah, Ferrari and McLaren, I think, will be very, very disappointed at their pace relative to Mercedes, and both know that they've got an awful lot of work to do to get themselves back into contention. And then Haas, just kind of there, really. I think they'll just be comfortably mid-grid this season. Behrman and Ocon doing a decent job. I don't think they really could have done any more. It's about where you'd expect Haas to be. They're both quite close together as well. So yeah, I don't really know what to say on Haas. They just kind of did what we expected them to do. But before I wrap this up, we should talk about the elephant in the room, which is the 2026 cars as a whole, really, because a lot of people aren't happy. And I think, as someone who's watched F1 for a long time, it is quite demoralizing when you see a car slowing down in a straight line. This super clipping that it's been called. I don't see anything particularly super about it. It seems pretty naff, but it's where they're having to like store up the battery for the rest of the lap you to deploy in the corners and in other places of the circuit. You see it constantly. Like it looks like cars have lost drive. It looks like they've lost. It sounds like they've lost drive, like midway down the straight. You see, I've seen multiple onboards. It's kind of ruined the onboard shots as well. You see, I've seen so many onboards drivers getting towards the end of the straight, and it's almost like their car cuts out because they're having to slow down to harvest the energy, and it's just. I don't know, for Formula One, it just doesn't sound right. It just doesn't feel right. It doesn't look right. I am, I always look into a new regulation set with an open mind, and I'm hoping it'll be good. I'm hoping it'll be good. But with this, I really don't know. With this, yeah, the fact that we've just got to the point where F1 cars are having to slow down on a straight in order to manage their battery and their engine and all of this other stuff. I don't know. It's not a particularly great sign, I think. But yeah, I think it's definitely going to be. It's going to be an interesting season for Formula One as a brand, I think, because if we do get this Mercedes running away with everything and the cars just really naff to watch, and we've got all this stuff with the harvesting and the battery charging and all this stuff, fans aren't going to be happy watching that. They're not. And we might see a point where viewing figures might actually go down and people lose interest. And I think F1 has done such a brilliant job of raising their brand over the last few years, obviously with the introduction of Drive to Survive and getting a new group of fans in that we haven't got before. F1 has done a great job. I think since Liberty Media took over, the one thing they have got right is the marketing side of it and being able to not raise awareness, sounds like I'm sort of pleading a charity case, but get more people interested in Formula One. and that's the one thing they have got right. But if we're getting to this point now in the season where, or we're getting to this point now where it's less about the driving, less about the racing, and more about managing and saving and all of this stuff, it's not what people want to watch. You know, they want to watch F1 cars going flat out for an hour and a half, every driver performing to their maximum potential. And as the years go by, we kind of see that less and less, and it's a real shame. But yeah, I am hopeful. I am confident that, hopefully we'll get it right eventually. And as far as the gaps go, yeah, there are massive gaps at the moment. It always happens during a regulation cycle. One team nails it better than the rest, and then there's massive gaps throughout the field because every team is at a completely different level. But it will converge as the years go on, as teams get upgrades, as they find new things, as they employ new personnel with good knowledge and all of this stuff. The field will converge as time goes on. But for now, it is a massive spread, and it looks like it's Mercedes with the advantage heading into tomorrow. But yeah, I think that's pretty much everything that I want to say. So thank you very much for watching. I hope that you found this enjoyable or interesting. If you did enjoy it, please consider leaving a like on there for me. If you're new around here and you like what you see, why not get subscribed so that you can be notified of future streams like this one. If you're watching on a replay, comment below any thoughts and suggestions that you may have. Thank you once again. Hope you enjoy the race tomorrow, and I will see you then after for a race reaction. Thanks once again. Take care of yourselves. Have an awesome day. See you next time. Bye bye.